Hey, everybody, welcome back. Oh my goodness, it is another sunny day. It is official. Summer is here, and I am so excited. And I'm also excited because it is another edition of the Real Deal Pod with Allister and Geoff, and I am back here again with my main man, Geoff. How are you, buddy? How's it going?
I am doing well. It's nice and sunshiny out again. I was actually multitasking there, replying to an email, reading, and talking to you. So it is a true fact, folks, that men can multitask.
Right?
I always jokingly say I have four sisters, and I always used to say, how Tarzan was raised by the apes. I
Yeah.
was raised by the girls, so I'm an expert in multitasking. But they also now say you shouldn't multitask.
Really? Because you're
Yeah,
not giving your full attention to the task at hand, correct?
I don't know if I agree with that. Like I think multitasking is awesome. But yeah, then people will now say that you should not multitask. You should do one task at a time, and then go on to the next. But then they say men can't multitask. So what do you guys want?
I'm guessing it was a man that came up with that report, or the man that that came up with that report that we shouldn't multitask anymore.
You could be very well correct.
That's one smart dude, let me tell you.
You know what? I actually didn't think about as far as who wrote that stat or that report or that book, but you know what? It could have been very well a man.
I'm
There,
telling you, man, that's a
there could
smart
be a
dude.
conspiracy theory behind all of this.
Right? Oh man, well, it has been busy. Same thing as me. I just looked at my watch because it just binged with an email. It is getting busy, so that's what I was kicking off. Did you know with it this week? It's the market stats came out. So yeah, it's interesting. It's busy and slow all at the same time again. So really interesting this month. We saw a 13% increase in sales versus last month, right? So
Last month, I think, was the slowest that we've been in 10 years.
well,
So
no, but yeah, so that's the thing, right? Sales went up 13%, but it's still 22% below last year
yeah,
and 36% below the 10-year average.
yeah. That's
So,
like my
but
stock
I
broker.
got but
Sorry,
I got busy.
that's like your stocks. When you have that discussion with your financial advisor, it's like, hey, got some really great news for you.
Yeah.
You're only down 2% from to what the market dictates, but you're down 30% from the year before. It's just like,
Or or I look at it as I chose the right stock, so mine are doing well, while a whole bunch of other people chose some terrible stocks and aren't doing so well because I've been busy. So that's my thing. When I see that we're like sales were slow last month, I was like, I was fairly busy. That's quite interesting. But I also know there were pockets of areas that were super busy. So I remember having this conversation with a colleague, and I was saying, in Abbotsford East, you know what the sales ratio in Abbotsford East is right now? 25% for detached homes.
what
And
what
they have
what does that mean? 25% ratio. What does that
one
mean?
out of every four homes are selling.
Oh, okay.
So that's an effect of that's a seller's market. Anything above 20% is a seller's market. So in fact, right now, going on in Abbotsford East, it's a seller's market for detached homes,
Right.
right? So it depends on the market that you're working at, depends on the product that you're working with, that really also dictates how busy you are. Not to mention the work that you put in, right, to your business. But that's where I was saying with this colleague, why it's so important to really continue to educate our clients um, what the market means to them, because what the market may mean for my client in Wally, where it's got a 7% sales ratio, seven out of every 100 homes are selling over there, right, is completely different to 1 out of every 4 in Abbotsford East.
I just worked on a file, Allister. These gentlemen put on multiple offers on multiple properties, and they were losing out on them because their offer wasn't strong. But where I'm going with this is that they looked, I think, at 3 properties, and they all sold within probably 5 days of them being listed. So,
Yep.
like anything, I think, I do love stats, and I know stats are really, really important. Some people just love the data, but at the end of the day, and I think this is where you're going, it's what are you doing? What are you looking at? And how is it being approached? Because again, in our market, if you have something that you're going to sell, it has to be priced properly. It has to be staged properly, right? Because again, a very wise realtor told me that purchasing a home is largely based on emotion. So if you go into a home and it looks like garbage, you're not going to be excited about it. You go into that same home that looks amazing,
Yep.
you're going to be excited about it. So again, I always say this: if you look for a reason why you're slow, there's tons of them, right?
No.
It's what you're doing. What are you doing differently in a tough environment that's going to maybe not make you have your banner year, but at least kind of get you to your averages?
Sure, exactly. And that's one of the things, going back to the stats. That's why I always say stats do matter, especially in this
Yeah.
business, but stats matter differently to different people. So that's what I was saying before, right? What one stat looks like in Abbotsford East is not the same story that's going on in Wally, which is not the same story that's going on in Bear Creek Timbers, right? Like each area tells a little bit of a different story. So it's really, really important that when we do look at these stats, when we are applying these stats, that we make sure that these stats are applicable to your individual situation. Because if you have a realtor that comes in and says to you, okay, you have a single detached home in Abbotsford that you want to sell, okay, it's going to take you 30 days. Well, how do you know? Because again, in Abbotsford East, it's taking about 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a different story over there. Right?
That's again the 1 out of every 4 are selling.
1 out of every 4. Right? Yeah, right. And again, what does that category have to look like? You have to have a suite in there as well, right? So that also plays into what does that story look like. So again, I love the stats. I hate when people just blurt out stats, because again, it's how is that stat applicable to me? That's what I always want to know, right? So, but to give a broad outlook, we are still down. Vancouver. So we saw in the Fraser Valley, we saw 1,183 sales, which was 22% low last year. Metro Vancouver saw 2,228, which was down 18.5. So both markets, again, year over year, are substantially down year over year.
And last year, we got to keep in mind, was down from the year before.
It was the year before as well.
Which was actually down from the year before that.
Exactly. Yeah. We're all facing, and that's the thing I was just going to highlight, that is everybody is facing 10-year lows, like substantial lows versus the 10-year average. Like I said, the Fraser Valley is down 36%, and I believe that Metro Vancouver was hovering around the same, about 32 or so.
From last year?
No, 10 year.
A 10-year average.
10-year average. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Going below the 10-year average. Like it's crazy. So when we look at the biggest thing again, listings went up. So we saw 10,626 active listings in the Fraser Valley in May, which was a 6% rise from April and a 34% increase year over year. So we've got more listings hitting on the market, but still nobody willing to buy them. Yeah. And what's crazier? We are 54% higher than the 10-year average. So we have
in regards to inventory.
Yeah, in regards to inventory. So we have 36% less in sales, below the 10-year average, right? Yet we have an uptick of 54% in listings. It's crazy.
Well, and again, I think a lot of people too on the buying side, and I speak to a lot of realtors, and obviously I think you're going to relate to this. It is a buyer's market, but also buyers, you got to understand that just because it's a buyer's market doesn't mean you can come in $50,000 less than fair market value.
Right. Yeah. And so there's the key. And so that's what I was going to say is one of the biggest things when we look at the pricing trends, we're really flat. We're like, there's been a shave of about 1.6% over last year.
As far as the value now.
The value of the home, like the sold price.
Yeah.
And it's down about 3% year over year.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you, Allister, is that we have a boatload of inventory.
Yep.
We have a 10-year low of sales.
Yep.
But value relatively is the same as far as property.
Yes.
Right.
Nobody's budging.
Yeah. And again, I always say the best time to buy is now. I always say in a buyer's market, it's like buying on sale. But again, this isn't a blowout sale where people are going to be dropping their prices a huge amount. Like, sure, they're going to drop a little bit, but I'm talking to some people and they're like, well, they're off, like this place is 860,000, but we're going to go in, with 730,000. And
yeah,
because it's a buyer's market, it's just like,
right.
well, it doesn't work like that.
So this is again what COVID caused. Okay. So COVID enabled the sellers to get everything and anything that they wanted for their properties through that basic 2 years, right? The value of homes went bananas. Sellers were raking in dollars, right? So now what has happened is now that wore off and the buyers now want their turn. And that's what buyers are clamoring for. They're clamoring, we want our turn of, like you just said, it's a buyer's market, so we're going to offer $70,000 less, and they just have to take it because it's our market and it's our turn.
Yeah.
And what everybody has to realize, guys, is it's not that case. Okay. The market now is dictating. So there is no seller's market and the buyer's market. You are in your market. You are now able to say, this is what your property used to be worth, $1.7 million. Now, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you have to understand that you're selling at 1.5 and this is what you're getting.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's still a lot of good bargains out there. Like the condo days with that Surrey development, I think they sold 66 homes in one day, which I think was more condos than they sold. I don't know what the stat was, but it was something silly. But there were some great value in there, like a two bedroom, two bathroom. I think it was going for 580,000 on the second floor. Like that's a good buy.
Yeah. There's a couple of developments in Surrey that are on lease land, that are new builds that are selling at a very, very nice rate. I think at like 225.
Wow.
For a two bedroom. And I mean, and just so everybody knows, lease land is the future of a lot of our land because the indigenous is allowing us to build on it. And so we will now learn that realtors will now start educating people properly on lease land as opposed to just saying it sucks so that they can easily sell a regular freehold non-strata land. Maybe we'll get into that on another pod, but there are some great values that are still out there, right? For people to get into. So
especially in development.
Yes, exactly. So again, with the market stats coming out, I thought it was just interesting to touch on that crazy dichotomy that we're 36% below sales on a 10-year average, yet we're 54% higher in our listings, and the buyers are not feeling it, and the buyers are still like. And again, one of the things that when I'm out with my buyers, and I jokingly say they have too much to look at now.
Yeah.
Are in all honesty, real estate, and people get frustrated in low inventory, right? Like I remember back through COVID, we were just everybody screaming, "Oh, there's not enough inventory. There's not enough inventory. There's not enough. Buyers. If I see it, it's gone. Da, 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 da. I can't get something quick enough." Well, now we have so much there to look at that buyers are just sitting there going, "I don't know. I
Well,
don't know."
it's like anything when you have too much of it, it isn't exciting anymore,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It is. It is. So yeah, it's a crazy dichotomy with the amount of with the sales versus active listings and continuing to topple more new listings coming on the market. I think we had shoot, I had the stat there. I'll pull it up later, but we had I think it was an extra 712 new listings come on the market last month. Like it was crazy.
The inventory is a coming. It
It
keeps on
keeps
coming.
coming. It keeps
Yeah.
coming, but nobody's buying. So again, everybody out there, it was people will again make sure that the statistics matter to you when you're having these discussions with your trusted partner. Make sure that the statistics you're discussing are pertinent to you. Don't get caught up in the hype, in the frenzy of what your friend might be telling you about a market, right? What your realtor or mortgage broker might be telling, or something you might have read on the front page of a newspaper,
But
right?
here's another thing. People are buying. If
No,
the
they are.
if
That's
the
my point.
home is priced well, if the home is staged well, people are buying.
That's what I was going to say. So even in that buyer's market of 7%, let's say 7 out of 100 sold, there was still seven sold.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of even unpeel this onion a little bit, Mr. Home Inspector Daniel Fedozenko, which we've had as a guest on our pod,
Yeah,
last month was his busiest month in 5 years.
that's
He's a
amazing.
home inspector. People are buying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's just a matter of understanding and this is what the media can do, and this is what the stats show that it is a buyer's market. People are not buying, but they are buying. Like it's just what are they buying?
Yeah, and don't so the really I think the moral of every story when it comes down to market stats, don't let other people dictate your story. At the
Yeah,
end of the day, don't let other people dictate your story. If you are in a position to buy, then buy. If you're not in a position to buy, then don't. But have a plan. If you do want to buy, then have a plan to make that happen quicker than later, sooner rather than later, so that you do get to take advantage of homes that are at value pricing right now. Because again, the market will go up.
it
It's
will.
not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. That's
Yeah,
all it is, right? So if you can buy now, buy now.
yeah.
If you can't, then start putting together a plan that allows you to do so in the near future.
Well,
But
which is a great segue into what we're going to talk about
talk
today.
about right away. Exactly. And I want to kick that off. But Geoff, I wanted to pause because we had the rate announcement happen.
Yeah.
And what happened, Geoff? We both thought it was going to go down.
Yeah, well, what happened was nothing. Nothing happened. Everything stayed flat. People will ask, well, why? Like our Canadian economy is not going to where it needs to be. Like you've told me if the Canadian economy is in a recession, we're going to see the Bank of Canada cut rates, which typically is true. But I think because we still have so much uncertainty with what's going on with the US and how Donald Trump is going to be handling these tariffs, um, everything is kind of still at the status quo. Very similar conversations to what we had with the last Bank of Canada meeting. But if you do listen to Sherry Cooper, which is Dominion Lending Group's chief economist, she believes that our prime rate or our overnight lending rate will drop at least two more times this year. So I guess we're going to wait and see.
Yeah. And that's what when I read the article, that was the thing that they put it on was there was just too much uncertainty going on right now for them to feel comfortable
Yeah.
in dropping the rates, which is completely understandable. And listen, that's just a judicious thing to do.
Well,
So
and I think too, we also have to understand when we've dropped the rates, it also triggered a frenzy in the housing in that particular case, which developed into a huge shitstorm of inflation
yeah,
and overspending and cost of goods. So I think moving forward, once you kind of clean all that up, you kind of walk a little bit more carefully
yeah.
as you move forward. And I think they call that wisdom.
Yes, I think it is, you know, and that's what and that's what I appreciate is that we're not going to go running headfirst and making the same mistakes as we did before, panicking because again we have some madman trying to flex around the world and stuff like that, right? I'm glad that we're remaining even keel and saying, hey, look, we might drop the next one, and I do believe we are going to see at least one more.
Well, here's the thing, like when we're talking about the Bank of Canada and dropping the overnight lending rate, keep in mind, folks, this is all about variable rate mortgage holders, right?
Yeah,
Or any loan that has the prime rate that's attached to it. It's not relative to fixed rates or anything to that nature, because those are all based on bond yields. And again, fixed rates, if you take a look at what the 10-year bond yield is doing, if it's going up, it's an indicator what our fixed rate here is going to do in Canada. If it's going down, it's an indicator as far as what our fixed rate here in Canada is going to do. And again, I always remind people is that these Bank of Canada meetings are all relative to your variable rates, your
yeah.
prime rates, your overnight lending rates. So at the end of the day, as well, variable rates and our rates, they're not horrible. They're good. Like the conversations that I have with some people, especially the ones that are renewing, and remember, 8 out of 10 Canadians' mortgages are renewing by 2026. And they're coming out of these 1.96% rates or these 2.25 or these 2.5 or high ones, high twos. And they're like, I'm going to wait until they come back to where they were. That's not going to happen.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. So if you guys, or if anyone is on the fence believing that your rate of 1.95 is going to come back in 3 years, never say never, but I'm going to say never.
Yeah. And so thank you. And I thank you for taking the time to make it clear with the variable rate because I think that that's one of the parts that get lost when we talk about the rate when we talk about the rate announcements is that that we're talking about the variable rate. The fixed rate people, it really doesn't matter that much to them, right? And when you look at the fixed rates right now, they're pretty healthy.
Yeah, there's 3.89% fixed rate out there.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's where I always say, like, that's one of the things that I'm glad that you stopped and took the time to really eloquently say, and the word I was looking for was distinguish, was that you know the variable versus the fixed, so that you know we don't have people getting lost in the whole clamor of oh we got to get the rates down to 1.9 1.7. Oh, I heard a friend of mine told me that the best rate is 2. So I'm going to wait until the rates are 2%. I know I love when you shake your head like that because it's, you know, you hear that all the time and it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I heard just somebody yesterday, I was on the phone call and was like, oh, my friend got this. And I'm like, well, if your friend got that, go and find whoever gave that to them and jump all over it because I'm going to call a little bit of bullshit on that because I don't see it and I'm dealing with this every day.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah, they just like the people like to pull numbers out of there, you know what, and sit there and say that this is what my friend told me, so this is the number I'm going with, or my friend told me he got this, so I'm gonna say, or my friend told me, say you got this, and then they'll negotiate it down closer to that number. Yeah.
It's so funny. People, again, we talk rates every day, and people will say, "Hey, this is what I'm getting." I'm like, "All right, well, go and get it. Let me tell me who's given it, so I can tell other people to go get it because there's no way we're going to even come close to that."
That's it.
And then it's like, well, what is the best you can do? It's like it doesn't matter if you can get this rate, then go and get it because that's a great rate.
It's
Well,
not better than that.
Yeah, well, but it's just like, okay, so are you getting this rate or are you trying some kind of poker move here? Because,
Exactly. A terrible poker move, by the way. So,
yeah,
Geoff, what do you got on for us, man? Because I know we were segueing into what I think is something super interesting for people.
well, yeah, well, back to your cases, like if you can't afford things now, what are you trying to do to afford things later? And we've talked about this many times on our pod about affordability, about first time home buyers and how are they going to do it. I just talked to my 21-year-old son yesterday. I want to give a shout out to that kid. He's doing really, really good.
For him.
But he had some really valid kind of questions. Is like, how do people buy homes? Like how are home prices going to continue to go up? Because I was explaining to him about appreciation, and property appreciates anywhere, from 4 to 12% a year. I think in the greater Vancouver area or Canada wide is about 7.7% appreciation. And he's like, well, how are people going to afford it? Well, people have been saying that since the time of dawn, or how am I going to afford it? Um, and it's a great question, but people afford it. Like our housing is not going anywhere. Our housing, in my opinion, is not going to depreciate, right? Our housing is going to continue to appreciate. If you take a look at CMHC's study, where do people now come up with the down payment? It comes from the bank of mom and dad. And that average down payment, and I gotta fact check this one, but they say it's $300,000, which is just insane. But again, how are people doing it? They're doing it with the bank of mom or dad, or they're doing it with gifted down payments, or they're doing it with co-signers of the bank of mom and dad. But people will always find a way of doing it. But as we talked and as we know, there's also things that our government is introducing to first-time home buyers and making it more affordable to them with 30-year amortizations, right? Without this GST relief rebate. RRSP is going up to $62,000. But again, I wanted to circle back to some of this, or not some of this, but a program called the First Home Savings Account, which it isn't necessarily the newest toy in the toolbox, but it's something that I wanted to bring back to our attention to say, hey, like if now is not the time, if you haven't been blessed with the bank of mom and dad, what are some of these things that you can do as a first time home buyer in order to move forward with the best investment of your life, or one of the best investments of your life, which is home ownership? So I
And
wanted
I
to
think,
talk about the first home savings account.
yeah, and I think it's so important to do that because we talk about it again on the pod, right? What your value is worth, what you're worth, right? So if you're renting, what was it at the age of
Yeah.
65? If you're renting at the age of 65, you have a net worth of $11,900. If you own, your net worth is $1.4 million.
Yeah.
If you are renting at the age of 30, your net worth what was 40 something thousand dollars. And then if you owned, it was 440 something thousand dollars.
Yeah, I don't even think it was 40,000. I want to even think it was
36?
like $400 or something. But just
Yeah, it's something stupid. Yeah,
yeah,
it's something stupid. So again, like I thought it was so important because really just if you think about that, that just tells you how important it is to save for your future, right? Owning property is your future. It should be your future, or a big part of your future because it's a big part of your future wealth.
yeah. So let's jump into this first home savings account, because I think this is something that people have heard. People may understand the scratch of it, but I wanted to bring it back. And this is the newest, I won't say the newest, but this is kind of the shiniest tool in the first time home buyer box. And I wanted to bring it back and just make people aware of it again. So again, remember folks, you can save up to $8,000 a year to a maximum of $40,000 for this first home savings account. Now, these are all tax deductible contributions. And when you withdraw it for your first home, you do not have to pay it back, right? So, unlike an RRSP, when you use your RSP as a part of the down payment for a home purchase, if you're a first-time homeowner, you have to pay that back within 15 years, or it becomes taxable income, right? So very similar to a TFSA, if you use this and you have a maximum of $40,000 when you're buying your first home, you do not have to pay it back.
It's a beautiful product. Yeah, it's a beautiful product.
So why are we talking about the first home savings account? We all understand it. We just went into it. Home prices are rising, right? If you take a look at even what we talked about, is that we have an all-time inventory high. We have an all-time, well, not a 10-year inventory high, a 10-year inventory or sales low. But again, the prices are kind of remaining the same.
Yep.
Right? And again, remember, we are still in an environment where we're having 10-year lows in sales, but the prices are remaining the same. The prices are going to appreciate. The one thing that I'm confident in saying is that homes are always going to appreciate. Yes, you're going to have some years where they dip, and I think you said it's down 1 to 3%, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you take a look at a $560,000 home today, if it appreciates 4% over the next 5 years, I think that math is that home is going to be worth $760,000 or something to that nature, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, home prices are rising. Down payments are out of reach for many. Again, I go back to CMHC's study with the bank of mom and dad, right? So what are we doing, or what is our government doing to make things a little bit more, I'm not going to say easy, but what are other things that can be introduced, or what are other things that you can do as a first-time home buyer in order to buy your first home? And again, this is your first home savings account, which gives you tax-free savings with investment growth, right?
I know this. I think it's great. Yeah.
So, Allister, I know your next question is, because you
Who,
always
well,
ask me the
who is
details.
eligible for this beautiful product?
Great question.
Thank you.
Great question. So anybody that's from the ages of 18 to 71, okay, is eligible. Anyone that hasn't owned a home in the past 4 years, and I think this is a big one, and we keep on touching about it, because again, a lot of people believe if they bought a home, they are no longer a first-time home buyer, which is true if you still own that home.
Yeah.
But if you've owned the home or owned a home, you sold it, now you've been renting for a period of 4 years or longer, guess what? You're a first-time home buyer again.
Exactly. I think this is the part where repetition is good, because this needs to stay in everybody's mind on how you may still qualify, right? Because again, every time you hear first-time home buyer, your mind automatically goes to, I owned a home once before.
Right. And here's the other part of this. If you are a homeowner and now you're renting that property that you have, that you own, and now you've been renting it to a renter, but you also are renting out another property for a period of 4 years, you are a first-time home buyer, even though that you have a home currently.
That's the cool part. That's the cool part.
So again, what you need to understand here, the funds with a first-time or a first home savings account has to be used within 15 years of opening the account.
Now, so what happens? That's one part I had a question about. What happens after the 15 years? Let's say, you thought you'd be able to, I'm going to buy a house in British Columbia. I'm going to start saving now, and oh my goodness, the house prices quadrupled. I can't afford it anymore. What happens?
That's a great question. Maybe it gets transferred into a different investment. That's something that I'm going to have to come back to you, because I don't really know the answer.
Okay.
Outside of, say, an RESP, for example, and maybe it's very, very similar. An RESP is designated for your dependents to go to school, by the age of 32. If they don't go back to the age by 32, it actually gets put into the parents' RRSP. Right?
Yeah.
It gets converted back. So I would be safe to say it would be similar as an investment. That was my guess. It's going to get converted into something that maybe there's a well, you've already paid tax on it, so maybe it's considered something else if you don't use it within 15 years. But a great question, and a question that I don't really have 100% answer on outside of common sense.
Yeah. That was just it.
Well, and here's the thing too, like understand now as a first-time home buyer, you can use your RSP of up to $60,000. Remember, folks, if you have an RSP of $60,000 and you are a first-time home buyer, you can use that as to formulate part of your down payment, but also do keep in mind you have 15 years to pay that back or it becomes taxable income. You also now have this $40,000 from the first home savings account. So again, in theory, if you are planning ahead and maybe the affordability isn't today, but you are utilizing your first home savings account up to $40,000 and saving towards that, remember a maximum contribution of $8,000 a year. You have contributed to your RSPs in that time, and now you can use $60,000 as a first-time home buyer. Right there is $100,000 that goes towards your down payment.
That's awesome. Yep.
So again, you can use multiple institutions to spread the investments around, providing they're within limits. Now, keep in mind when you are using that first home savings account, you are putting it into investments. You are trying to utilize the whole idea of compound interest. So it doesn't necessarily all have to be in one institution. It can be spread out to several. And also remember that you can also carry forward any unused contributions to the following year.
Can you choose what the investments, what the money goes into?
This is where I would direct us back to a Joe Tablin, financial advisor that specializes in this. And maybe we bring Joe back to kind of answer some of those questions for us. But I've learned a long time ago, if you're not the expert in the field, you can have an opinion, but your opinion may not be 100% correct.
Correct, yeah.
Always ask that expert in the field. And again, this is always to do with a financial planner, such as Joe Tablin, which we've had on the pod a couple of times now.
He's the man.
So a couple of things that we need to avoid. You need to avoid over contributing because that's going to equal tax penalties.
So again, it's how much are you allowed per year?
$8,000 a year to a maximum of $40,000
in total. Yeah.
You must meet the criteria for a tax-free withdrawal. Now, if the funds are not used for a home, and maybe this actually answers your question. What happens if you don't use it after 15 years? Similar to an RESP, you can transfer it to an RRSP or a RIF.
Yeah.
And again, always use a mortgage advisor to avoid costly errors. And I'm also going to say, also make sure that you have a financial planner to ensure that you're doing things properly, as well as an accountant. And this all comes back to what our power team is, right?
Yeah.
And remember, folks, in a power team, you need a realtor. In a power team, you need a lending partner. In a power team, you need an accountant. In a power team, you need a financial planner. And again, a home inspector if you're into that real estate investment.
A mover too. Movers are important to know to have a trustful one on hand.
Yes, yeah, but again, the power team is somebody that you're always going to be referring your questions to, right? You're not going to be referring your questions to a mover. It's good to know a great mover, but somebody in your power team should know somebody that can help you move.
Yes,
right.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So again, a power team is somebody that you can always ask questions to, and that are going to help you, right? Again, that's your accountant, that's your money guy, that's your realtor guy, that's your financial planner.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we got. First home savings account. We're gonna bring back next week. Want to again talk a little bit more about the GST relief program that basically rolled out May 27th. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But again, we're also going to be bringing on some more guests here pretty quick. So that's going to be exciting as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get a property manager on soon, which I think will be interesting for our clients that do have investment properties that that they may not want to take care of themselves, and learn about the pitfalls of having to maintain your own properties. Why sometimes it's better to have a property manager as opposed to dealing with your investment properties yourself.
Especially if you're busy.
100%.
Yeah.
Or if you don't live in, especially too, if you don't live in the place and you think that you can trust a relative or a friend to run over there and deal with this stuff, sometimes that doesn't work.
Property manager, a good property manager, there's lots of horrible ones.
Yes.
But a good property manager to me is worth every penny that you have to pay them.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I think we did good this week. I think we did good. I think we should just let everybody go now. Thank them for listening. Let them enjoy
More released.
Right? Let them enjoy the sun and enjoy the weekend. It's going to be a great one coming up. It's my daughter's sports day tomorrow, so I'm out. Yeah, I'm out there tomorrow. I'm going to hang out with her at sports day. She gets to lead it, so she's super excited because she's
the flag bearer.
She's a grade 7. It's the last year at school, so she's one of the big kids on campus. All the kids look up to her.
I remember my track days, or what do they call them now?
Sports day.
Sport days.
Yeah.
It was, you could order the hot dogs, and I would order like 6 of them. They were like $1 each, and you're sitting at your desk, and actually no, that was hot dog day. Sports day was you would go to the concessions and get all the like those yogurt ones. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, and pixie sticks and all of that stuff.
You had no participation ribbons back in those days either.
No. There's no such thing as a participation ribbon on sports day. If you came in last, you got poked fun of, unfortunately. Yeah. But it was all good. It was all fun. So yeah, so super excited. So everybody, thank you all for listening to us today. We do hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Enjoy it. We can't wait to have you all back here for episode number 59. And until then, stay empowered, stay informed, and most importantly, Geoff,
stay tuned.
That's right, baby. Stay tuned. Peace out. Oh, yes. Continue to love, like, share us, and love us. Peace out, people. See you next week. Bye now.